So there's a couple of different ways that you can overexpose depending on what 35mm camera it is that you actually have. So the first method is if you have a 35mm camera like my Nikon FE here, which has a light meter built in. So I shoot this in aperture priority, which means that I set my aperture and then the light meter judges the scene and I can see inside the viewfinder what shutter speed it thinks I should use to expose the scene. So a camera with a light meter that has auto modes and is able to pick the shutter speed for you. And for cameras like this, you can simply use the exposure compensation dial on the top of your camera here and choose a number above 0. Anything above 0 will be telling the camera to expose by that amount over what it thinks the exposure actually should be. So normally this would be set to 0. If you're in aperture priority, for example, your camera will then meter the scene and choose the exposure settings to expose the scene properly. Let's say a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second. If you then adjust this exposure compensation dial to +1, you'll be telling the camera to increase that exposure by 1 stop, so essentially overexposing by 1 stop. The shutter speed the camera is going to use would now change to 1/100th of a second, so a full stop brighter. And if you have a camera like my Nikon FE, you'll be able to see that happening inside the viewfinder. If you adjust the exposure compensation dial to +2, then it would be 1/50th, so 2 full stops brighter and so on. If that's a little confusing to you, I know it might be because the number is actually being split in half instead of doubling. That's because 1/50th of a second means the shutter stays open for twice the amount of time as 1/100th of a second. So a slower shutter speed means the shutter of the camera stays open for a little bit longer. So the more you want to overexpose, the longer the shutter stays open to let more light hit the film.